I've been very passionate because I took the time to now understand Bitcoin, how revolutionary it is, and the changes it could make, especially for Africa. You come to understand in terms of financially where we're placed as a continent and the disadvantages that we have, especially the global economy. One thing I can see is that at least the perception is changing quite a lot, and I even feel having the conference in Kenya, it's going to even have the conversation even grow further. I would love to encourage more women to please try. There's always something you can do. I guess right now, because the conference is coming to Kenya, I'm really excited about it. I'll be an advocate. Buy those tickets, and welcome to Nairobi, Kenya. Karibu, Kenya. It's a beautiful country. Nairobi is a beautiful city. There's a lot to enjoy. There's lots of other areas to visit around Kenya. So I believe this Bitcoin conference will be like no other. And I am honestly looking forward to it. We're looking forward to welcoming all of you to the country.
Hi, Bitcoiners. How are you guys doing today? Welcome to yet another episode of the ABC podcast. I am very happy today to host Noelyne, who is a Bitcoin advocate in Africa, based in Kenya. So I'm so glad to host you, Noelyne. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Nick. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be on the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, for joining the ABC podcast. Yeah, so today we are going to discuss a range of things. We are going to basically talk about your work in the space, especially in Kenya and also in Africa, because I know that you do a lot of work across the continent. So we are going to, get your opinions and see what you have been doing all this while in the space. But before we, start all the whole conversation, I would like you to talk to us a bit about yourself and also about your work and what you do.
Okay, thank you so much. So, my work essentially is more, I work with Machankura. Um, so, Machankura, it's a Bitcoin wallet company that enables sending and receiving of Bitcoin without internet connection. So with them, I do more of in a startup. You say you do everything, but I focus majorly on the on the marketing, especially in Kenya. I'm responsible for onboarding and maybe any other responsible things that are required, especially in the country of Kenya. And besides that, in Bitcoin, I also carry out translations of Bitcoin content or Bitcoin literature into Swahili for easier understanding. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. That's amazing. Thank you so much. Can you, talk to us about your first interaction with Bitcoin, and I mean, why did you become a Bitcoiner?
Okay, so for me, it was more of mostly a personal issue that I had initially that drove me into wanting to find out exactly how money works. Because
Mm.
I've been affected majorly by the crisis that occurred in the 2008 crisis that occurred, the financial crisis, and it just drove me to want to find out exactly how money works. You know, when you undergo something that is, especially I can say maybe traumatic financially, you want to work towards finding a solution. And so I ventured into learning about money. I decided to study financial engineering in campus. And in campus around 2015 is when I came across Bitcoin for the very first time. A friend was carrying out mining at the time using their laptop, and I was very curious. I think that was when we had the very first articles in Kenya about Bitcoin. It was exciting, but I didn't know much about it because at the same time I was still young. I didn't really understand the in-depths of money. So I had a wallet with Zappo before it became a bank, and I used to just get tiny sats from that tap to pay games, and I lost the Bitcoin. Um, I did not even pay attention to Bitcoin after that. Like, that was the time I think I was also learning a lot about Ponzi schemes. And like most people, I just ignored it and thought this is a Ponzi scheme that will come and collapse eventually. So, to my shock, really, years later, around now 2021, I met somebody who was traveling on crypto at that time and a bit of Bitcoin, and they taught me how to carry out trading. And I was a very curious mind. I was so surprised that it had advanced so much since back then. I actually went back to try and find my wallet and that I'd lost. Unfortunately, they had already transformed, and I was told it's gone. And
Wow.
since then, I've been in the space. I've been very passionate because I took the time to now understand Bitcoin, how revolutionary it is, and the changes it could make, especially for Africa. You come to understand in terms of financially where we're placed as a continent and the disadvantages that we have, especially in the global economy. And I was like, yeah, there's nothing else I'd rather like being or working. And so that's basically just an entry to the space.
Awesome, awesome. So you had your first interaction with Bitcoin back in 2014.
15.
In 2015. So okay, so imagine that you held your Bitcoin till this moment.
I even remember, even remember the price the very first time. It was around 50,000 Kenyan shillings. That was it was at $500.
Really?
Yeah, about yeah. You can imagine, but I guess it was the time it was a space it was a time I had to go through so that I can really understand.
Understand? Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it's really never too late to queuing into Bitcoin. Whenever you
never
get
too
to
late.
know about it, its use cases, and then you queue in, it's always all good from there, right?
Yeah,
And I mean, you have been having interaction with people on the ground. You have been doing
yeah,
adoption, like the real on the ground, teaching the ordinary men in the streets. I mean, the villagers, the market men and women. You have been talking to them about Bitcoin. Have you like had like any encounter that is like a very successful story that you singled out in your interaction with Bitcoin and teaching people about Bitcoin? Do you have like any success story that is really touching when you have been educating these people?
lots of successful stories. I guess also for me, it's more of watching the transformation that Bitcoin has in people when it comes to money. There's a couple of people I work with. So under Machankura, we have a program called Orange Pillar Program, whereby we have a group of people who, okay, rather, you can be an orange pillar and you receive transaction fee from the wallet every time you carry a transaction. And working with people, you can be able to see the change in behavior where and then the beginning, people will just want to have the price go up and sell. But after a while, they realize, oh, wow, I sold and it's going higher. So
Yeah.
it has encouraged really a saving culture. So that's one thing I've seen a lot. And also in terms of curiosity, maybe we can mention there's a group of women under Bitcoin babies. That's also a really wonderful, successful story that I've gotten to see, whereby right now the women are really interested in learning more about Bitcoin and they're interested in financial education. So I think once people realize there's money that really cannot be controlled, you see, for me, the major change, the major success stories, the change in behavior in people when it comes to money, once they are now focused towards the future, their spending behaviors change, and it's really wonderful to see. It's hopeful to the listener.
Awesome. Awesome. What I think the one that really interests me is the women that you talked about and how their enthusiasm has grown and now they want to
Yeah.
learn more. I mean, that's always how it really works when they have their first encounter. They're like, okay, is it really working and stuff like that? And then they see it, they use it, and then their interest will begin to grow. And it's I mean, it's really because of these people that most of us that do this education in Africa do it so that people can always have access to their money and they will be able to use money and also be able to escape a lot of financial difficulties and financial constraints in the continent. Like there about more than 50% of the continent's population are still unbanked. According to the World Bank report, there's like 49% have bank accounts as it stands. So it means that still about half of the population still doesn't have a bank account. But now there is a project like uh, Machankura. And of course, it's also important to note that penetration is also increasing in Africa. People are using mobile phones more. A lot of people, more than half of the population, is using mobile phones now. And there is now Machankura that people can use to send and receive Bitcoin without internet. So, what's the unique opportunity that Machankura really presents, especially for the ordinary people in the streets?
Okay, so even just besides having no internet, even when you have low internet connection, or rather, connectivity is still expensive, especially for we call them the common wananchi here, for low income areas.
Mhm.
People who are living on less than $1 a day, they can maybe just afford to spend around maybe 20 cents to be able to get airtime that they can be able to buy with it credit. So even if you can be able to get the internet, it's still not affordable
Mhm.
for majority of the people. So when we have even that low internet connection, we have platforms like WhatsApp that are very popular in Kenya. So
Mhm.
and Machankura is also integrated with WhatsApp. So we have this population, especially the youth, who can also still be able to access the mobile Bitcoin transfer through the WhatsApp platform. And besides that, also Shankura also offers people the opportunity to buy airtime using Bitcoin and also spending in other areas like supermarkets, groceries, and we also facilitate saving. In Kenya, we have something called chamas. I don't
Mhm.
know what it's called in where you're from, Nigeria, whereby it's a group of women or maybe just a group of people who come together and they do the merry-go-round, whereby they save
Yeah,
money, and then at the
I
end of the
think it's
year,
called Ajo in Nigeria.
called Ajo. Oh, that's an
Yeah,
interesting name. I didn't know that. So right now I've learned something today. Ajo.
yeah.
Yeah. So around here it's called Chama. So we're also offering groups an opportunity to save, and with this, I guess we are trying to just figure out what is it that people do with money basically day to day so that we can be able to facilitate them in these areas.
Makes sense. And everything that is done on Matakura is done completely offline. It means that whether they have internet or not, they can have access to save or to do their group savings or to send and receive money, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So you have the option of using the USSD.
Hmm.
If you've used the USSD, the dialing platform for the SMS, and also now you have the WhatsApp option as well.
And in what does Machankura work like all the countries in Africa, or are there specific countries where it works for now?
Okay, so in terms of the USSD, we are currently in 7 countries actively,
Hmm.
but on the WhatsApp platform, as long as there's no restriction in your country, you can be able to access it globally, actually. Yeah. So it's possible to just access it. For the USSD, though, we are currently in just 7 countries.
Yeah, that's really great, and that is really really interesting. And like me personally, I'm always really happy when I see African product because it's always developed and built from the place of really understanding what is needed on the ground than
Yeah.
maybe someone maybe in the West or somewhere just in their own imagination trying to see what the problem is. So it's always really different when someone on the ground who has really experienced it comes up with these types of product. And I'm
Yeah.
really glad, and I hope to see it spreading to more and more countries and helping to onboard more people into Bitcoin. And now
Yeah.
one of the core things that you do also generally as a Bitcoin advocate in Africa and also um, with Machankara is teaching people. And it's not always so easy to go direct or to teach people. And there is always a lot of misconceptions about Bitcoin. So, in your experience and teaching people and interacting with people on the ground, what has been the biggest misconceptions about Bitcoin that you have encountered, and how did you manage to clear it with people?
Okay, so maybe in terms of the teaching, that's not directly through Machankura. I've worked with Exonomia. So Exonomia does the translation a bit, whereby we just translate Bitcoin literature into African languages. Um, So with the teaching, of course, the most obvious is the scam. I wish we would have gone past that, but recently there was a mining scam with a company called Mara, and so even though you try to educate people, there's people who come and they destroy the reputation, and you have to start again explaining to people. One thing I can see is that at least the perception is changing quite a lot, and I even feel having the conference in Kenya, it's going to even have the conversation even grow further. So there's that, and also I've also seen a lot of improvement in terms of Bitcoin companies and or Bitcoin advocates in the country. There's a lot of good work being done. We have educational platforms like Bitcoin Data, Bitcoin Core. Also in terms of development, I should mention, I think Kenya is well known for M-Pesa.
Yeah.
It's also an infrastructure that's already there, and we've been trying to find ways in which you can spend Bitcoin. So even if somebody does not want to receive Bitcoin, and I have Bitcoin,
Yeah.
there's a new development called Tando that
Yeah.
now enables, yeah, we can now spend Bitcoin directly from my wallet and through an M-Pesa pay bill or a till number, you can be able to pay any merchant, and they don't have to know that you have Bitcoin. So I can say within the past, I think 2 to 3 years that I've been in the space, I have seen immense development, and it's gradual, but it's really impactful. Um, when it comes to the government, um, recently they allowed our company Marathon Digital will now be carrying out Bitcoin mining in the country. So I feel like we are really progressing in the right direction when
Mhm.
it comes to embracing Bitcoin, and I hope we can really keep up this way for long. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in the past 2 to 3 years, the ecosystem has really grown
It
because
has.
I know in the past 2 years there wasn't so much, and in the past 2 years I've seen like it was like boom, and we have more than 100 builders, communities, products everywhere. So I'm just looking forward to the next another 3 to 5 years. It's going
Yeah.
to be like a bit in the top, and I'm really excited. And we are just all waiting and working together to see hyper Bitcoinization
Absolutely.
really happening. And another interesting product that you just mentioned is Tando, and I'm
Yeah.
really waiting to come to Kenya and to see how it works and see how I can make payments, because I also know that a lot of Kenyans have M-Pesa, so that really plugs in a lot of people into the system and helping them to make transactions with Bitcoin.
True.
That's really cool. And now let's talk about another exciting work that you do, which is translating Bitcoin books into Swahili. So, like, how many Bitcoin books have you translated so far?
I have done three.
Three. Wow.
Yes, I've done the block size wall. I've done Nick Batia's layered money, and Seferdin's also the Bitcoin standard.
Wow, that's that's really awesome. I can't. I mean, you have to sit down trying to translate it from English or from whichever language it is to Swahili. How is the process like? How do you really do it, translating it? Because I know the Bitcoin standard was also written by someone who is not an African.
Yes.
So how do you try to, I mean, mix it with how the person's idea and trying to make it relatable to the culture of people that speak Swahili.
Of course, there are a few words that will be very difficult to translate. Words like lightning, words like blockchain,
Mm.
Bitcoin, of course. With the process, it's really just straightforward. We have but because I don't do it alone, there's a whole team behind that also does proofreading. Yeah, so it's not like a solo project, but majorly we carry out the translation and then somebody else does the proofreading just to ensure it's good. For the first two books, they're open source. They can be able to be accessed by anyone through our the Exonomia website. So it was mostly an open source translation. But for the Bitcoin standard, we had to have it in hard copy. I feel it was important for us to, if we can be able to get it to the rural areas where
Mhm.
people don't really speak English, if we can be able to get them a hard copy. I keep on talking similar to how when I was a child I received the Bible a couple of times free of charge, and
Yeah.
in honesty, I wish to do the same for the books. If I can find a way to just get it to as many people as possible, it will be great for me. But yeah, so that's the only book that we've done hard copy. But for the other two, they're really open source. If anybody would like to access them, together with any other languages, they can access Exonomia. If anybody wants to be a translator as well, they can be able to translate. They can join us also through Exonomia. I think this is mostly of like a group effort. If all of us want this to succeed, all of us should be at least willing to put in the work. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. That's really great. One keyword that you mentioned is the rural areas, which was like the next question that I was going to ask you, and that will also lead to another question as well. But I want to ask you first, like you have translated it to Swahili, and you said you go to these villages to give these books to people. So
I would
how?
love to yet, but that is the goal. I unfortunately I can't afford it because
Yeah.
yeah, but I'm working toward being able to afford and at least get if I can get even at least 1,000 rupees to as many people as possible, whether it's in Kenya or especially even outside Kenya.
Mhm.
Yeah, it will be great.
That would be really great, and I mean I really hope that you'll be able to pull it through to see, because I wanted to ask you how the reception has been
Yeah.
since you translated it, and maybe these guys they have seen it and maybe it excites them, or how has their reception been with you translating it and giving them the books. And I mean it will really also make sense if you are able to make these books in this language and also teach them free, like you said, because they give a lot of Christians, they print their books and they give it free, and
Yeah.
people are, and they will also do it in the local language, so it's always
Yeah.
easier for them to get to interact with them, get to do their
Yeah.
teachings to them. So I'm really looking forward to see when you start that project of printing these books and giving it out to
Yeah.
the villagers or people that speak Swahili. Is it something that you're still thinking about, or did you already start like the project?
We've donated a few for now. So it's something that already started. I would like to do a bit more. So that's something that's in the works for me between now and whatever time.
Awesome, awesome. Another thing that I also wanted to ask you about is like you're a Bitcoin advocate,
Yeah.
and sharing from your experience, how you had a bad experience and how you first interacted with Bitcoin and how you also, interact with Bitcoin now. There is
Yeah.
a, a potential for Bitcoin to support economic growth in Africa. And this is what you also advocate, and this is also what you have spoken about in your different engagement. Can you talk about how Bitcoin can really empower communities, especially those rural areas?
Okay. So I want to be all positive, but I have to be realistic here. Most of the rural areas have said there are people who are lots of people who are living on less than $1 in a day in terms of earning potential. So I feel like the trajectory we should be heading towards is for these areas trying to figure out opportunities in which you can be able to bring to these people so that they can be able to hopefully earn in Bitcoin. Because the majority of these people cannot set aside money. You cannot tell them just set aside money and decide to buy Bitcoin. If I'm living on survival today, I don't have savings to put aside for the future, and probably even Bitcoin won't make sense to me in terms of saving it for the future. The point of inflation won't make sense to me if I want to eat today or tonight. For me, I'm feeling if we can be able to get opportunities to this area in a way that they can be able to earn in Bitcoin, just aside from educating them, or encourage them to have businesses in which they receive Bitcoin. I think that's also a thing that I feel would be the best way to go about it. That way, we can be able to economically empower these areas.
What are like the use cases that you can see that they can really be able to aside maybe from buying it, what are other use cases that Bitcoin can be really useful to them?
Of course, in terms of the spending as well, that will be thing. So this is why I guess maybe the parts of the circular economies will really come through. At least Bitcoin and Cassia has been able to do it properly in their area. I guess maybe that's a challenge to the rest of us. We can be able to get communities around. I guess because it starts from the community at the end of the day. That's something that also at least Bitcoin babies have started with the women they're teaching. It's an area in Nairobi around, it's called Kimbo. With this, we see the women themselves have even started to get businesses to accept Bitcoin. So the Bitcoin they receive, they even go and spend it. They're spending it in hospital, they can spend it in at the salon, they can spend it just buying regular things. So the use case in terms of spending will be really, really essential because the store value and saving, I'd like to be honest, it can't really apply to especially lower income areas
Yeah,
in Africa.
true. Yeah, you mentioned an organization. Is it like a secular economy in Kenya?
I hope they will be heading towards that direction. Naomi, if you get to watch this, but yeah, what I've seen is the onboarding businesses in their areas because the women
Mm-hmm.
all come from a particular location and they're onboarding them and they're enabling them to yeah, spend Bitcoin also in the areas they can be able to spend businesses around the same area.
But currently, is there like a secular economy operating in Kenya?
Not really one that I can say that is actively operational. It's just mostly businesses that are accepting Bitcoin. Yeah.
Mm. Then I think
And
that you guys need a secular economy because I'm not
yes,
seeing Kenya is really pushing a lot
I
in
hope
the
when we
adoption.
come here we can be able to establish one. We should establish an area and have one running at least within.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to it. And let's talk about women participation in Bitcoin ecosystem generally because we have been in the space for the past 2 years. You have been in the space advocating and teaching and educating people about Bitcoin. What has your experience been like as a woman in the ecosystem? Even though some people say that it's male dominated, which I don't really think so because everybody in this are in the space and they are making contribution. But how has your experience been in the space and what are the opportunities that you have seen since you have been in the space for women?
I guess for me, for Kenya, that would be a different conversation because here we have Bitcoin Dada and she's enrolled lots of women in the
Yeah,
space. So when people talk about women in the space, I'm like, we have lots of women in the Bitcoin space here in Kenya. But yeah, I honestly do understand. Sometimes the space can feel a bit dominated because I guess the technicalities. I won't even lie. For me, I usually say I have when it comes to the programming side and the mining side, constantly learning. I guess you can never really stop learning. There's always improvements coming up, and I can for female psyche, I believe most women don't find this interesting. I would love to encourage more women to at least try. There's always something you can do. It doesn't have to be on the technical side of it. Look at me. I was very happy to just participate in doing translations when I first joined this space. So I feel we should just encourage women to do what they can do best. If you can do videos and post them, just showing about Bitcoin, it's still something. It's
yeah,
still at least pushing us towards somewhere. But my experience so far in the space, I feel it's a very welcoming space, even for women. I have met a lot of women in the space, and it's been comfortable. It's encouraging to also when you meet somebody, they're very open in offering information if you'd like to learn. So far so good.
yeah. It's a very big space, like you said. Anything you can do in the space, Bitcoin is always accommodating to whatever skills you have and however you feel you can contribute to the
Yeah.
development or the adoption or the education. You can always come in, and
So that
it's really, really very, very good the work that Bitcoin Data is doing. And I'm also glad to see them that now they are spreading not only in Kenya, but when they do their programs, they include people from other African countries. So I'm also looking forward and hoping that it will help to get more women participation in the space. Yes, so we've had tons of discussion about the ecosystem, about what you have been doing, about adoption in Africa. Now let's talk about the future. When you look at the future, uh, don't judge by the 2 or 3 years ago because we know
Yeah.
that it has been really explosive. But when you look at the future of Bitcoin in Africa, what do you envision and how do you see the future turning out?
Okay, so I think a major concern for me has been in terms of the regulation side of it. I guess once you start working in this space, you realize how this really impacts you, and you hope that governments can be more supportive rather than suppressing the industry when they're coming up with regulations. And then the worst part is if you are working with governments and people don't even understand how the industry works, then they want to take up imposing regulations that maybe apply in fintech onto Bitcoin. So maybe that's just a concern. I hope that as we head towards the future, we can have more people in the political sector understand and. If they have to impose the regulatory measures, which I'm not a fan of, but
Yeah.
it will be more considerate into progressing the industry and understanding its importance and in terms of developing Africa when it comes to the financial and economic side. So there's that, but otherwise I feel I'll never stop saying there's a lot of work to be done. The
Yeah.
workers are few. I hope we can be able to just continue spreading the education to as many people as possible.
Mhm.
But so far, so good. I feel that because I'm mostly in Kenya. If I can speak for Kenya, we have seen immense progress over the past 2 years, and I just see we are heading towards a trajectory whereby it will be more of a mainstream communication
Mhm.
in the country. So, and I hope we can be able to spearhead this and have more countries just take it up and see that Bitcoin is here to benefit all of us. And yeah, we'll be able to move Africa to greater heights in the future.
Awesome. The importance of regulation cannot be overemphasized, and also the people that makes the policies being able to understand Bitcoin and
Yeah.
also not doing copy and paste like you said. They will just go to fintech and they bring the regulations there and they think it can work for Bitcoin, or maybe when they even see another country that is not even an African country do some sort of policy about Bitcoin or about blockchain and they just try to do copy and paste. So I think it's really important because without regulation and without also the government being kind of maybe not necessarily very friendly, but making a policy that can work for everybody. I mean, when they begin to make policies that can work for everybody, then it's a very, very good sign that can help, that can make even the education easy. Because I imagine that when you are meeting people and trying to educate them about Bitcoin, they might say, "Oh, the government does not support it. Oh, the government said this or that." So I think the regulation part is really, really important. And of course, like you said, education, 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 and not only really education, but giving people the right education, because
Yeah.
there are a lot of people that have been educated about Bitcoin, but it was in the wrong direction. Like maybe they were told to come and put maybe $20 and tomorrow they will make 40 or they make 50. And then when it doesn't work, then it becomes a negative experience for them. And when you try to do education to them, then it becomes very, very
Oh,
difficult
I
to
have to
convince
add
them.
on that also. Please educate and also have them receive the fast lighting transaction. That is very important. Just don't just stop at telling the person about Bitcoin. Show them. If you show them, it's bound to stick. They're bound to remember. They're bound to, even if they forget about it at that point, they'll be like, ah, there's a Bitcoin transaction I've carried out before. And
Yeah.
so be practical also about the education. Actually, in terms of education, be practical about it. They don't have to go into the in-depth of how the history of the central banking
Hmm.
or the philosophy of Bitcoin. Majority of these things that you have to really go in depth about. As long as I understand this is a different form of money, when I can be able to send it to someone and I can be able to receive it and I can be able
Hmm.
to, right now, at least we're heading towards where I can be able to spend it. In fact, the in-depth is not really important for most people to understand. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, that's a very important point. People really need to know because even the bank app that people use, they don't really know the technicality around it. They just know that they send money and people receive it. So it's really, really important just to practicalize and let them see it work. It has been a very, very wonderful conversation with you, and thank you so much
Thank
for
you so much.
making out time. And before we round up, I would really like you to talk to us about your project. What project are you currently working on? I know you said you have transcribed like 3 books to Swahili. Are you planning to do more, or what's the next thing that you are working on?
Okay, so right now I'm focused just on the distribution part of it. So that's major. But my main work is, of course, with Machankura, Machankura, Kenya to be specific. We are holding various things. Actually, very soon, we've been doing mostly cinema showings. We'll be working on that, so we want to get it to the films. So anywhere we can be able to start accessing people to be able to see Bitcoin content.
Mhm.
That's where we're at. And for now, I guess right now, because the conference is coming to Kenya, I'm really excited about it.
Yeah.
So I'll be an advocate, buy those tickets, and welcome to Nairobi, Kenya. Karibu, Kenya. It's a beautiful country. Nairobi is a beautiful city. There's a lot to enjoy. The weather is fantastic, especially in December. There's a park at the city of Nairobi. If you're bored with the city, there's lots of other areas to visit around Kenya. So I believe this Bitcoin conference will be like no other, and I am honestly looking forward to it. We're looking forward to welcoming all of you to the country.
Awesome. What is helpful to you have just sold Kenya, you have sold ABC to everybody. That's great. So everyone, the Africa Bitcoin Conference is happening from the 9th to 11th of December in Kenya. Like you have heard, I mean, if I didn't even want to come and I just heard how Noelyne just described Kenya and the conference, I would just be forced to go and buy my ticket and start packing my bags to go to Kenya.
Absolutely.
So I am personally really looking forward to ABC in Kenya. I'm
Very
excited
good.
and I'm going to see everyone in Kenya. Thank you so much, Noelene, for joining us. Thank you for your time and thank you for sharing amazing insights with us.
Thank you for having me, Nick. It's a pleasure.